Hi, this is Chris Smith with Local Joe's. At Local Joe's, we help local business. Hi, this is Chris Smith with Local Joe's.
This is City Pulse Newsmakers, a weekly look at the issues and the people behind them in Greater Lansing. Brought to you by City Pulse, Lansing's weekly alternative newspaper. And now, here's your host, City Pulse publisher, Burl Schwartz.
Good morning. Farmers market season is upon us here in mid-Michigan, and we're going to find out more this morning about this fast-growing movement. Joining me are the Executive Director of the Michigan Farmers Market Association, Drew Montry. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Christine Miller, who is the market manager for both the Bath and the Meridian Township markets. Yes. And Lizzie Ferguson, the market manager, of the Allen Street Market. And Kathy Dunbar, a Lansing City Councilwoman, who is here in her capacity today as the director of the South Lansing Community Association, which has a farmers market as well. And welcome to all of you. Drew, I was surprised at how many markets we have now in mid-Michigan when I looked at the list in City Pulse this week. How reflective of that is that of what's going on statewide?
Well, it's pretty reflective of what's happening across the state and also across the country. So when we started the Michigan Farmers Market Association in 2006, there were about 150 farmers markets in the state. And since then, we've doubled that number. There are more than 300 today. So we're seeing a lot of growth and a lot of consumer interest in shopping at farmers markets.
And what defines a farmers market in the association's eyes?
Yeah, for us, a farmers market is any place where two or more farmers come together to sell their products directly to the public. And then it can expand dramatically from there. And we're seeing a lot of unique products at farmers markets all across the state. Farmers markets have their own policies, their own rules that guide their development. And one of the things that I like best about farmers markets is they're as unique as the communities in which they function. And so not one farmers market is the same.
Christine, you're running two of the markets in the area, one of which Meridian Township's been around quite a while. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I'm not that familiar with Bath. How long has that one been around?
Bath has been around, they're doing their 5th year this year. Meridian Township just celebrated its 40th season a couple years ago. So they are vastly different, but there is a lot of overlap of being able to provide Michigan produce to the consumers of both communities. Meridian Township and Bath both have programs to allow income-based families for Bridge Card and SNAP, the Double Up Food Bucks program, WIC Project Fresh, and Senior Market Fresh. Both are offered or are accepted at both of the markets, which allows consumers of any income base to be able to purchase fresh fruits, vegetables, and other goods that are eligible.
Lizzie, your market is, of course, very urban, and as is the South Lansing market, which just moved to St. Casimir's Church. What might differentiate your market, say, from Christine's?
Well, I would say that what I try to do as the market manager in that community is offer a really wide range of products. So things that are on the low end cost-wise and things that are on the high end cost-wise. Because of our proximity to MSU, we also have a lot of professors from MSU, a lot of faculty, a lot of students that shop there that might have more expendable income to spend on organic produce and the cheese that's a little more costly. But then we also have vendors who sell conventional produce that is and by conventional, I mean it's treated with pesticides, but it's lower cost. Mm-hmm. So there's a very wide range of things for people to choose from. And I'm sure that that's the case at Meridian and Bath as well. But it's definitely a focus at our market to make sure that there's something for everyone, that there's both expensive product that can kind of, you know, keep those vendors, bring in that money for them, but then there's also lower cost things so it's accessible to everyone.
You mentioned in the article in City Pulse this week that you don't want the market to become a boutique. What did you mean?
Well, the question was actually posed to me if I wanted it to become a boutique, and in my mind what that means is not so much produce, but value-added products that are, you know, that have really nice packaging and are made from all natural ingredients, and that just might not be as accessible. When I hear boutique, I just think less accessible, more expensive. And so I just don't want, we can have vendors like that at our market. I'm happy to have them. But as long as we have, you know, the families that, you know, have their own small farm down the road selling their produce there, I just want that to always be present.
Kathy, your market is relatively new. Tell me about its impetus and what kind of difference is it making in South Lansing?
Our market is 7 years old now. We're in our 7th season, and it actually started with a grant years ago to bring food into what is identified as a USDA food desert area in Southwest Lansing. And it began in a park. We had our first 3 years were at Benjamin Davis Park. We migrated to where our office was located at the corner of Boston and Mount Hope. And just because we've grown so much, we needed to expand into a larger space. We're now at the St. Casimir Catholic Church, and we hold our market in the parking lot right outside of our office.
And that's Thursday afternoons.
It's today.
Well, it isn't because the show's on Saturday.
Oh, I blew it.
You did.
We're not live.
Allen Street is on Wednesday afternoons. So when are your markets?
Bath is on Thursday afternoons also from 3 to 7, and Meridian Township is on Saturdays from 8 to 2, May through October, but then we add Wednesdays starting July 1st through the end of October, also from 8 to 2.
Drew, is this the movement that we see at Allen Street and the other markets that are represented here toward making sure that people on the lower end of the economic scale can access fresh produce and that sort of thing? Is that a statewide trend?
It is, and it's essential to this movement. So it was part of our vision when we started the association was to ensure that all Michigan residents have access to fresh, healthy foods. Of course, we focus on doing that through farmers markets because that's what we do. There's a lot of different ways to accomplish that. And when we started in 2006, there were 3 farmers markets that accepted food stamps at that time, which is now SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And today there are about 150 farmers markets in the state that accept SNAP. So we've invested a substantial amount of time and resources and energy in encouraging farmers markets to think through why it's important to be accessible, and all of the markets that are here today have followed suit with that. And then there's been really innovative programs that have come from that. And so now in Michigan we have Fair Food Network's Double Up Food Bucks program, which allows families that use SNAP at farmers markets to double the amount that they're using for Michigan-grown fresh fruits and vegetables. So if they use $20 on their bridge card, they can then get $20 in Double Up to shop with Michigan farmers. And we also have the Hoop Houses for Health program that's at Allen Street Market here in the Lansing area, which is a really cool program that is a partnership with the MSU Center for Regional Food Systems and the Department of Horticulture to allow farmers to build hoop houses on their farm, which gives them some opportunity for season extension. And then they pay back the loan that they've gotten for that hoop house through produce, which we do through farm to school sales and also at the farmers market. So I think that it's been so important to increase the use of food assistance benefits, and then that has also allowed us to become really creative in different programs that we're able to offer here in the Lansing area, but also across the state.
One of the things you do is you lobby for farmers markets at the Capitol, and you've had some successes. And what are your legislative priorities?
Well, we have a big event every year for the last 10 years where we advocate for Michigan farmers markets through our farmers markets at the Capitol. This year, those markets they're always on Thursdays from 10 to 3. This year, they're on Thursday, July 30th, August 27th, and September 24th. And what we do through those events is really try to showcase Michigan markets. A lot of our Lansing area markets also participate in those markets and promote when they're around, and we really advocate for policies that benefit Michigan farmers. So in the past, we've worked on cottage foods, we've worked on wine sales at farmers markets.
What are cottage foods?
So in 2010, there was a large group of partners all across the state that were interested in allowing food entrepreneurs to try out non-potentially hazardous foods in their home and sell them to the public. So now probably all of the markets around the table have cottage food vendors, and those are small businesses that are producing those foods like breads and jams and jellies in their home and selling them at farmers markets. And they just have to be under certain economic threshold and labeled properly to sell at the markets.
And what are you working on now legislatively?
So we've been working more on kind of some internal policy things recently with state departments. We've advocated really strongly for a new licensing for cooking demonstrations at farmers markets, which is new in 2015. We also are working with our Department of Ag and some other nonprofits on doing a certification program for wild mushroom foragers. So that's going to be a new product in Michigan markets. And we're also having conversations around beer sales at farmers markets.
Kathy, in the Lansing area, people remember a vibrant city market, but they're talking about 20, 30 years ago when it was packed on a regular basis. Some people say that the decline of the city market, as far as the farmers market goes, is attributable to the growth of all the regional markets in the greater Lansing area like yours. Is that the case, or is it the other way around?
I don't know that I would attribute one to the other. I do know that when Lizzie was mentioning the boutique versus the farmers markets, one of the things that I hear, and I love the city market, but I think it may be heading toward a more boutique-y feel. The produce is not necessarily locally grown. I don't think that there's one farmer direct vendor in that building. And a lot of it is value added, processed. It's Michigan produce and organics and good stuff. But I don't know that it serves the niche that we fulfill in the urban markets. And that is, I don't know that the lower income brackets would necessarily have gone there for the higher end products. That now that there's double up food books, I think, and I don't want to disparage any market, it's a great market. I just think ours have a different feel to them. They're obviously, we don't have a brick and mortar structure. We are open air tents. It feels more like an ethnic bazaar. I think we have a huge refugee population that's been coming in to shop at the market. And like we have a policy, I don't know about your guys's, but I think we do 75% food products, 25% craft and fabric and jewelry and things like that, so that it doesn't overpower the fact that it's there for fresh food, as far as that goes. And also it's a placemaking opportunity. It's something for the neighborhood. There's entertainment, there's kids activities. I love the fact that you mentioned the recipes, because we have recipe demonstrations with local products, and allow people to taste them and then take the recipes home and show them where at the market they can buy the ingredients to do this, to promote the vendors. And seasonality, I think that's another big thing, is educating the public that comes to farmers market about living in Michigan. And you're not going to find sweet corn in June, and you won't find strawberries in August. And if you do, they're coming in from somewhere else. And we don't have oranges here. You're not going to find oranges at our markets. And sometimes that's frustrating for people that come to our local markets, because they'll say, like just recently, well, you've got asparagus and you've got this, but where's the tomatoes? Well, unless it's grown in a hoop at this point in time, we won't have tomatoes. And so there's an educational component. There's also the meet your grower. I think that's another unique thing that that we offer folks, is you can actually talk to the person who planted the seed, who watered the plant, who harvested it, who brought it to market. And I think that's really important
And when
for a lot of
you do
people.
have tomatoes, they actually taste like tomatoes, and not something that's been gassed and been on a train for a week.
Exactly. And the other important thing with that, since we were talking about giving access to fresh, healthy foods to neighborhoods that don't have, I mean, one of the problems with food deserts is people pay a high market price to buy groceries at a gas station or a convenience store. And when they do access fresh produce, it has been gassed. Well, the nutritional value of a piece of produce, it ends when it leaves the vine. So, and it takes maturing. Like that tomato needs to mature to full growth to have the nutritional benefit that we think a tomato should have. If you pick it when it's green, gas it to make it red, it has less nutritional value than a tomato that's actually been picked the day that it came to market. So we're actually providing a more nutritious food to folks too.
Lizzie, I want to ask you, as someone who runs a market, that some people say, well, the Allen Street has grown up in the place of a city market. And whether it's, to use an appropriate metaphor today, a chicken or egg thing, do you think a city market for Lansing now is obsolete as a farmer's market?
I think that that's quite a question, bro. What I think is I don't really feel comfortable comparing the two, because I think there's definitely a place for Lansing City Market. I think that the direction they've gone in right now, it clearly isn't really working for them, and they might need to go back to having a more, actual farmer's market where the farmer is present, where the producer is present. Because I think what they're missing is the spontaneity and the community aspect of what farmers markets are supposed to be. They're not just places of commerce. They're community events. There's something fun for people to look forward to every week. And I think the Lansing City Market has just, it's not a farmer's market in people's minds anymore because of its bricks and mortar structure, because it has a restaurant operating out of it. I think they're not a farmer's market anymore. They can become something else. But right now, we are fulfilling that need a little more fully, I think, because you can go to a farmer's market in the Lansing area every day of the week, pretty much. Is it every day of the week?
Monday.
Except Monday.
Yeah.
So I think there's definitely a place for them, and definitely for food entrepreneurs. Like it could definitely function as a restaurant incubator. It could function as an incubator for people making foods like salsas, breads. It could function in that way, but I don't think it's unless they bring back that direct farmer to consumer thing. I think that we're filling that niche a little better at this point.
You bring up an interesting point, and I'll talk to you now as a city councilwoman. You be the city councilwoman. I'll be the one asking.
Okay.
The direction the city market seems to be going in is bars and restaurants. It's not official yet, but it will be soon.
You know something?
Yes. And
Would you like to share that?
Insisting that those bars and restaurants have to use fresh local produce and meats and
I think that's an interesting opportunity. I think that, it's we all offer food at our markets. We all have hot food, ready to eat food at our markets, and you can dine in or take out. And one of our policies is like the tacos that are sold at our market. That we have the knights of the knights. Did I say knights? Yeah, the knights, spelled with a K. I said, looking in the camera. The Knights of Columbus and the families from the IHM St. Casimir School are all selling tacos at the market, and the meat comes from Lonesome Pines Beef, who is our meat vendor, and the salsa comes from Ophelia's, who's also a vendor. And as produce comes in season, they will be using produce from the market. So I think that it's a viable option to promote. It's mutually beneficial. When they come in and they love the tacos, we say, go try the meat out there. And when they buy the meat, they say, if you want to try it, go in and eat the tacos.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a wonderful mutually beneficial relationship to have at the city market. I don't know. I know that policy is not in place right now, but it's certainly one to consider.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up.
You're welcome. And the survey, the LEPFA, which runs the city market, did said that 58% of people in Lansing still think of the city market as a farmer's market. Is it a mistake to
I have a question
move away
about that
from
survey.
that? What is your question?
My question about that survey, and it states that it's not scientifically done. They chose folks from Facebook, and they interviewed people at apartments that live nearby. There's no indication that any of those folks that answered have actually been to the market. So they could be going on what their perception is based on it being called the city market. There's no way to take the aggregate data and sort of extrapolate out who's been, how often they shop, what their opinions have been over time of the market. So I don't know. I mean, I heard that there's a survey and I've heard about this, but I haven't heard any indication. I mean, that it's valid. So I apologize for blowing that bubble, but I don't.
If the city market, if LEPFA does indeed take the city market in the direction of bars and restaurants, and perhaps with one day a week where it would be a farmer's market outside, do you think that's going to be a controversy? Or has that ship sailed now? Have people given up on the city market as a farmer's market?
I don't think that the vendors have given up on it being a viable market, but
there are only 7 vendors and only 2 of them sell
produce. And again, I don't think any vendor in there is a farmer direct.
Right.
So, and I wasn't here. I was not here in the heyday of the thriving city market. You may have been.
No. Well, maybe the very tail end.
Okay, because I remember seeing photos, and there was a whole lot more produce, and there was a whole. I remember seeing trucks backed up to the bays, so people were actually selling produce out of the trucks and in the bays. So I am curious to know, like, how that compares to now. I mean, I think that they go down to the Eastern market maybe and buy produce and bring it back and sell it. I don't know.
And I would just add, not specifically towards Lansing at all, but across Michigan and across the country, there's a huge opportunity for public markets. And I think that, now is a good time for markets that they're so popular, and for communities to be able to rethink how they want to frame a market and what they want the mission of that market to be, and what shoppers in that community want. So I think that there probably are some challenges, but there's also time-wise, there's huge opportunity right now.
Christine, I want to turn to an entirely different topic, but one on which I think all of you may have opinions. But you're also a farmer.
Yes.
And I wonder what your thoughts are about labeling GMOs.
Yes and no. I have a lot of customers that do ask, what my animals are fed and things like that. A lot of them do appreciate the practices that we do. We don't have access to non-GMO at this time, but we're hoping to by next year. But some of them, they're, some customers, that's what they're looking for, and that's a practice that they want to have in their, household and things like that. And I appreciate that also, and I let them know that it's something we're working towards in the future. But the best we can do at this point is, no hormones, no antibiotics, no medications or anything like that. It's just a nice, wholesome product. I see, even customers asking, even produce vendors and things like that, other neighbors asking how their practices are. Farmers markets are a great educational tool to let farmers be able to explain to them how their practices are. If they do spray anything, what kind of things do they do? Do they use organic practicing towards it, or are they using conventional? So people know what type of product they're buying. If it's they're using non-GMO seeds, are they using like doing heirloom type products or organic products? That's part of the farmers market experience is building those relationships with those customers. And being able to get their feedback, but also being able to adapt your business or farm to what customers want. Helps your business thrive and grow and continue to fit the needs of your customers.
Drew, is that an area that your association gets into at all, whether things should be labeled?
So in terms of labeling, we do work with markets a lot of times just to be really transparent in markets, and we do encourage markets through all of our professional development sessions to really just encourage their vendors to be transparent and in some cases require it. So there are farmers markets in the state of Michigan where everything at the market is not grown by the person that's behind the table. We have some producer-only markets in Michigan, and we have some that are not. But a lot of markets are moving towards, labeling that. So like at Meridian Township, for example, they have Farmer Direct. You're going to have to help me.
Yeah, well, we have our homegrown, so the farmer grows it themselves. We have Farmer Direct, where their neighbor grows raspberries, and so they have the direct relationship with that farmer. We also have wholesale, so for example, they go to the Eastern Market or Benton Harbor and go buy some produce and resell it. So they don't know necessarily who the farmer is. And then we have our homemade, where they're making baked goods in a licensed kitchen. Then we have our cottage food, so they're making it out of their home kitchen. And all our vendors have to label their products that way. We only have a handful that are allowed to do farmer direct or wholesale. Our old timers that are grandfathered in, we do require all of our new vendors to be 100% homegrown or homemade.
And Lizzie, one of the things I think that's a problem for people when it comes to healthy food, organic food, is cost. And what is your policy at the market? Are you encouraging organic, even though it may be more expensive? Are you trying to make sure people can afford food regardless?
Well, since I came on board 3 years ago, I don't think I've taken on a single new produce vendor because there was just already a really solid group of produce vendors there. And it was already across the board, like from one end of the spectrum to the other. So conventionally grown, organic practices, but not certified organic, and federally certified organic. And that just goes back to the cost spectrum. So people can buy what they can afford or buy what they want if they're looking for an all organic diet.
You have, in the last, I think 2 years ago now, opened your winter market, or your non-summer market, I guess.
Yes. We call it the indoor market.
Indoor market.
Yes.
How is that going?
It's going very well. So we just ended, back in God, what month is it? May. May we ended it, our second season indoors. And we were seeing attendance numbers basically double from the first year. So, we're still not quite where we want to be as far as it being, a really sustainable thing for the vendors who sell there. But we are in a trajectory that's looking good.
And Kathy, before we go, what's in store for South Lansing and the farmers market this season? What do you looking ahead a few years? What do you hope it will be?
Well, it's interesting now that we're at St. Casimir. There is a huge gym affiliated right inside the door. It's like a Hoosiers style gym, and Father Bill down there has told us, like when there's inclement weather, rather than having us cancel the market, we can bring the vendors inside. And depending on how that works and how scheduling works, we may attempt to do an indoor market.
That's terrific news.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about that too.
Well, you can find a list in City Pulse this week of all the farmers markets with their hours. And by the way, we will be at the farmers market at the Capitol for all three of them. The first one is July 30th. I look forward, regardless whether City Pulse is there, it's something I look forward to. It's one of the best things going on in Lansing year in and year out. Thank you all for being here today. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.